13th of December 2021.
One man's grit, determination and stamina.
One man all alone in the ocean fighting the elements.
From news.com.au. News.com.au.
I'm Andrew Bucklow, and I've got news for you. What you're going to hear today is an incredible tale of human survival. In 2013, a South African man named Brett Archibald was on a surfing trip with a group of mates off the coast of Indonesia when he fell overboard in the middle of the night. No one realised he'd fallen off the boat. He was totally alone in shark-infested waters. Now, most people can only tread water for a few hours before drowning, but somehow Brett managed to stay afloat for more than 28 hours. Today, Brett will detail his deep-sea nightmare and will reveal what it was like to be rescued from certain death.
I'll never forget this. I just heard, "We've got you, mate, we've got you."
Brett, let's just go back to the beginning. So it was about 2 a.m. and you weren't feeling well, so you went upstairs to throw up over the side of the boat. But the sea was pretty rough that night and you ended up falling overboard. What went through your mind when you fell into the water?
I still never forget this moment in my life. I vomited and this pain just came into the back of my head and I thought, geez, what is that? And then I vomited again and I obviously blacked out because I was in a dream. And I was tumbling in this washing machine. And I was like, this is so bizarre. I'm in a washing machine. But what it turned out, I'd fallen overboard. I got sucked under the boat and I'm tumbling through all these bubbles. And obviously my buoyancy picks me up. My head pops up. And I remember wiping the water from my eyes and looking. I just saw my boat maybe 30 yards ahead of me, sailing off. Next minute, the tinny came straight past me. All I thought was, I've got to catch that tinny. And I remember just putting my head down and swimming maybe 10 strokes and lifting my head. And the tinny was now 20 yards away. The boat was further. And I just screamed, mate. I just looked skywards and I lost it. And then it was the most bizarre thing. I suddenly heard a hyena in the water. And I'm looking around, where the hell is this hyena? And I realized this noise was emanating out of my own throat. It was like this manic cackle. It was the weirdest thing. I don't know why. I'd fallen over with a t-shirt and a pair of shorts. I put my hand on my pulse and I don't know why I did that. I didn't have a watch on, so I just started counting in my mind. 1001, 1002 to 15 times above 4. And all I remember is my pulse being over 180 beats a minute. And I just thought, oh my God, this is just adrenaline. When this runs out, you're going to sink like a stone. I'm treading water, I'm thinking, but I kept getting smashed. I'd swallow water and then I'd cough and vomit. So I thought, okay, I've got to swim. I wasn't going to swim to get anywhere. I just was going to swim so I could see the waves coming. And I just developed this breaststroke, just counting. It was weird. I counted. Pull my arms 1001, kick my legs 1002. Pull my arms 1003. And I started counting like that. And so a minute went by. And then I thought, okay, now I'm going to count the hours, And in a weird way, my brain actually clicked along counting, because when I was found, the guys asked me what time in the morning I thought it was, and I was half an hour off. But, it was so weird. My mates are coming back. I can swim now. I've got it. But then I cramped. So it was still dark at this time. It gets light there around about 4:30 a.m., between 4:30 and 5. It started getting light, but I was cramping, Andrew. Jeez, I tell you, my ankles were actually touching my glutes, and that was really messing me. Then I couldn't kick. My hands kept going into balls like this, and I couldn't swim with my hands like this, So I'd try and lie on my back and just kick my legs and then stretch my fingers open to the point sometimes I thought my tendons in my fingers were just going to snap. But I got so exhausted and I didn't think I'd been in the water that long. I knew I'd fallen around about what time I'd fallen over. Now it was getting light. So I said, okay, you've been in the water 2 hours. That's not a long time. But I was exhausted. I just couldn't swim anymore. And I just wanted to sink to the bottom. I said goodbye to my family and I couldn't, the Men's Straits is not a shipping channel. It's the only boats that go across there are surf charter boats, ferries to the islands. So I knew at that time of the morning in that kind of storm, there was not going to be any boats. I had a belt on and I wanted to write a message to my family. I didn't think I was going to make it at this stage. So I took my belt off and I used the buckle, the pin on the buckle, and I started scratching a message into my skin. It was basic. It was like,
whoa,
accident, goodbye, love you. So I start scratching.
Wow.
It starts bleeding, and I suddenly go, Archibald, blood, sharks. Sharks can come and eat you. No one is going to read your message, you numpty.
Brett was bleeding, he was dehydrated and he was exhausted, but somehow he managed to tread water for a few more hours. And then came the moment he'd been waiting for. He saw a boat.
I see this boat coming, and I just know it's my guys, and I start laughing. I didn't know it was 12 hours to the hour. I'd fallen over 2:30, and in the ship's log, these guys sail up to me, mate. They sail up and they stopped, I don't know, 50 meters away. I could see them. I could see my mate. It was pouring with rain, though, and what I didn't realize, the rain was coming from behind my head, and they were looking at me. So their peripheral vision was they were just looking straight down into the water. Every time they looked up, the rain was in their eyes. So even though they were so close, they were just looking down. And I remember my mate, he had a big hoodie on, and his arms were crossed, and he was just staring down, and I screamed, mate. I thought my lungs were going to come out in my throat. And when the boat stopped, I was at the bow of the boat. Suddenly I was with the current. I was in the middle of the boat. I even thought, what a clever skipper. It's a 65-foot boat. They're going to put the tinny in the water, come and get me. I'll be back on board. We're going to be drinking beer, and we'll talk about this for the rest of our lives. Next minute, I'm at the back of the boat, and two of the guys walk back downstairs, and I go, nobody's seen me. Let me tell you, I put my head down and I swam to, and I couldn't swim against the current. The current just took me away. Eventually I lift my head. I realize I'm even further away. I am screaming and screaming. And next minute I just see these two puffs of black smoke, and that was them starting the motor up, and they sailed away again.
Oh no, that must have crushed your spirit.
That crushed me completely. And I just gave up. I remember just lying on my back and saying, I just want to die. I just want to die.
Brett had been in the water for 12 hours and his spirit had just been broken after he came agonisingly close to being rescued.
At this stage, I just want to go down. And the next minute, my neck, my back of my ears, my shoulders were just on fire. And I look around me, and everywhere I can see a little Portuguese man of war. We call them blue bottles. But they were all over me. And do you know what? I was so, not relieved. I mean, I suddenly knew how I was going to die, because for the prior 12 hours, my biggest question was, how's this going to end? Am I going to just sink to the bottom and drown? Is a shark going to take me? Am I going to be like Jonah and get swallowed by a whale? But these things are stinging me, and I realized, okay, I'm going to go into shock and I'll just sink to the bottom. And I was but when I talk to you about our will to survive, my brain, it was almost like my brain kicked, and there is no ways I'm going to get killed by a bunch of you little blatters, And I started ripping these things off my neck, and suddenly I was out of them. The current had pulled me through, but I was on fire. And the one doctor said to me, he said, Brett, that was one of the things that saved you. I was so angry with these little guys. I was talking to them. I was saying, I won't use the expressions I used, but like, you take that. And so I'm going again. I'm swimming along. I think, oh, God, I can't do this much longer. Come on. And the sea's calming down more and more. And then I think I must have fallen asleep, because I thought my wife was tickling my back. I was in this dream. But I didn't know the back of my knees was completely and utterly raw, because I had a pair of board shorts on that had quite a rough hem in them. So from just doing breaststroke and kicking my legs, the back of my knees was completely raw. So as I came round from this tickling, this pain in the back of my knees, I woke. I mean, when I say sleeping, it was seconds. I think my head must have done this in the water. And there's just little silver fish everywhere that are nibbling my skin. But they've got to the raw flesh, and they're eating the raw flesh on the back of my knees. And I'm like, my first thought was, I got to catch one of you, man. This is lunch. Trying to catch them. They disappear, but with my arms going, and next minute this thing just hit me in my back left kidney. And And I thought it's a barracuda. Just the way it nudged me, I thought it's a shoal of barracuda. Again, I was actually relieved. I thought a shoal of these things will just smash my body apart in a couple of seconds, Then this thing actually pushed me in the water and moved me around. And I thought, no, that's not a barracuda. And it had like this raspy feeling. And I thought, that's a shark. And I remember going, I have to watch my own demise. And I remember going under the water, opening my eyes and just finning around. And as I got around, the clarity of the water there is so beautiful. I don't know how far away from, I just saw the shark coming at me. And I remember going, oh my God. Because it looked like the size of the London Red bus, And I remember just lifting my head and saying, bite me once here and take my head off in one go. And again, I tell you, the way our brain thinks, in that split second of doing that, I saw his fin, and I've dived all over the world. It was a black-tip reef shark, and my brain went, there's a reef nearby. There's a reef nearby, because I know they don't swim. They're not open water sharks, They need to be around reefs. So I thought, you've got to catch this guy. You've got to catch him.
Catch the shark.
Catch a shark in the water. I mean, it was the most, but this is how in such desperate moments, how crazy the brain can be. In my mind, I was going to, as he came at me, I was going to sidestep him, throw my arm over him, grab onto him, and just hold on. And his fin his tail would go, and he'd tow me to a reef. And then I went, that'll never happen, Brett. You can't catch a shark. And again, that split second, remember I said I'd thrown my belt away. I went, you know what, as he comes at you, just throw your left arm down his throat. Okay, you're going to lose your arm, but you just put your arm around, then you've got it. He can't get, and you throw your right and hold on. And in those milliseconds, I thought, Brett, you were such a numpty. Why did you throw your belt away? Because you're going to lose your arm, or maybe you need to do a tourniquet, And within that moment of big thought, the shark flicked his tail and disappeared. And that was the only time I cried. I actually burst into tears. I was like, come back.
Having survived an encounter with a shark, Brett then had to battle another enemy, but this time from above.
I think I nodded off again because the back of my head, just this thing hit me on the back of my head. I remember lifting my head, and then my face just burst into blood and feathers. And I was like, what the? And then this other bird, and it was 2 seagulls. So I think my head was floating like that. They're complete scavengers. I think the one had come down, landed on my head. I'd woken up, given it such a fright, and this mate just hit me in the eye here. I still have a lovely little white scar on my nose here. So all this blood is coming down, and I start talking to seagulls. I'm like, I can't use the language I used at the time, but I was like, what do you think you're doing? I honestly didn't think seagulls would do that. And these, they're squawking at me, and I just watched before I went on the trip Finding Nemo with my son. And that Michael, mine. I'm thinking, you guys are good guys. You meant to be like help Nemo, And with 2 squawks, they flew away. But I remember watching them fly away, and my nose is bleeding, and I'm like trying to wipe the blood and lick it because I don't want it to go in the water because I've just seen a shark. And I watched them fly, and I suddenly, somewhere I'd read that seagulls, like ducks, can float on water, but they don't like to roost on water. So my mind figured, okay, we must be still quite far out, but they're going to be flying. It's now late in the afternoon. It's not sunset, but it's getting darker. Well, I can see the sun setting, and they're flying that way. And I tell you what, I got so pumped because the current was taking me in the same direction as them. And I was like, I'm going to hit land before nightfall here. So just be pumped. We keep going. So I'm singing my songs, going along. It's so weird because I watched the sun break through the clouds, and it was just above the ocean. So now I'm figuring, okay, the sun sets at about 7 o'clock at night there, 7:30, 7:45. I thought, no. I can't see land yet, and yet the sun's setting. That means I'm going to have to swim through another night. And I just couldn't. But the weirdest thing happened. I don't know how. One moment it was daytime, the next minute it was pitch dark. All I remember is seeing these little lanterns. floating in the water, and I knew they were jellyfish. They were those jellyfish, like beautiful purple.
Right.
And the current was just taking me into them, but I was cramping so bad. I formed a plan. Okay, I now know how I can end my life without too much effort, So in my mind, as I got into the jellyfish, I was going to shove one down my throat and swallow it. I was going to grab another one, put on my head, and the other one and hold it against my throat and just... This is my plan. I'm going into these jellyfish, and they are everywhere. So as I went into those jellyfish, I tried to grab one, and I thought, and they started stinging me, and the absolute opposite happened. I got so angry, like with the little blue bottles. I just lost it. I was grabbing these things and just throwing them. And I still remember hearing that they go in the end, go plop, plop, and I'm just throwing them out the way. But the tentacles are all over my chest and my neck and around my throat. But like the jellyfish, suddenly I was out of them. And they were there. I'm here, but I'm on fire. And again, like I talked to the blue bottles, I'm like, bring it on, buddy. You think you're not putting me down? I'm having this whole warring conversation with a pile of jellyfish.
Brett had narrowly avoided death yet again, and a few hours later, his spirits were raised when he spotted a fishing boat in the water.
I saw this little fishing boat.
Oh.
I could hear these guys, these little Indo guys fishing. They all fish with hand lines. And I screamed, but my tongue was so swollen from all the salt water. And interestingly, during the night, my teeth had started chattering. And I was swimming at one stage with my 2 fingers in my eye sockets and my thumb under my chin to hold my mouth closed because my tongue was so swollen. When my teeth were chattering, I was just inadvertently biting my tongue off. So I screamed, but I just go, oh! That was like the noise that came out. I went, God, I can't scream. So I start swimming to this boat. I was so close. And then a noise like a tractor starting up because they've got those little V8 motors in their boats. These guys started up and sailed away.
Oh, no.
And I said, this is it. I can't carry on. I'm actually going to, and I made the conscious, and I'm not proud of it, but I had a complete conscious decision to end my life. And I thought the only way I'm going to do this is by drowning myself. I remember putting my head in the water and trying to fill my lungs with water. I couldn't. So I swam down. I remember turning on my back. I said all my goodbyes, and I just breathed in water. And our bodies are amazing. We've got a gag reflex that stops us doing it, but you can override that. And I remember just filling my lungs with water and then breathing it out. And that was the most interesting thing. With my tongue so sore, water going in, I didn't feel anything on my tongue. When I breathed it out to take another breath, my tongue, with the warm water on all the cuts in my tongue, I was like, Lots of speeches again. Come on, you're killing yourself. Another one, filled my lungs up, breathed out. Third one, I remember breathing this water in, and as I breathed it out, my brain exploded. I felt there were just springs going ping, 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 ping. And I went, what are you doing, Brett? You've just seen one boat. It's a perfect day. There are going to be gazillions of fishing boats out. Fight, boy, fight. And I swam to the top and I just vomited.
An Australian skipper named Tony Doris Elthrington was out in the Indian Ocean that day. He was ferrying around a group of lads from Western Australia in his boat when he heard about Brett falling overboard. He joined the search, but given Brett had been in the water for more than 28 hours by this stage, he thought the chances of finding him alive were almost zero.
Suddenly I saw the bow of the boat and there was a bloke sitting on the front and he was pointing left, right, and the boat was doing this. And I looked and I'm not getting excited, I'm hallucinating. And I kept watching, just treading water, and I'm watching and watching, and suddenly the whole boat came into view, and there were guys on the roof of the boat looking left, and there were all these people on the sides of the boat. And you know, I've just got goosebumps. I just got goose flesh all over me. I just knew they were coming at me, but I could not have another letdown. So I said, I'm not even going to get excited. They're going to sail right up to me and then I'll start getting excited. So I'm treading water, watching. They come closer. Now I can see the boat. I think, okay, I'm giving myself one last chance. They haven't turned very far. I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to swim in that direction for the count of 300. I'm going to exhaust myself. I'm going to lift my head. They're either going to be there and they'll rescue me, or they'll be gone and I'll be so exhausted, I'll just sink to the bottom. I remember counting 300. I lifted my head and the boat was right there. And I screamed. I thought I was like, over here, chaps, over here. When I got on board, I said, did you hear me screaming? They said, yeah, mate, we thought there was a wounded buffalo in the ocean. But I screamed, and this guy in the front looked up, and he looked right. And I remember screaming again, and he turned to me, and then I just heard this roar come off the boat, because one of the little Indo guys had seen me in the binoculars, and he put his head down. He said, hey, skipper, there he is. And Doris looked up, saw me, and turned. And they were coming straight at me. But they said, I realized now they're coming, and I knew I was going to be rescued. They said I came out the water like a water polo goalie. They said I almost got everything, my entire upper body out the water. And I remember just waving, going, thank you. As I went back into the water, I went like this, but my entire body just cramped. My arms, my legs, my buttocks, my back, my neck, everything just went into this ball, and I just dropped. The last thing I saw was this bloke just running and diving off the front of their boat and hitting the water. But I was going down, and I tell you, it was the most peaceful thing of my life I've ever experienced. I knew I'd given it everything. And I remember saying to my wife, baby, how ironic. I'm seconds from being rescued, and I'm not going to be rescued. And I was just going down, and I was at such peace. And I'm going down, and I'm calm. My ears were starting to pop, and I'm just going down, down, down. And suddenly this arm came under my armpits, under my arm on the right-hand side, under the left-hand side. My descent stopped, and I started going back up. And my head broke the surface, and I'll never forget this. I just heard, we've got you, mate, we've got you.
Brett, when you go through something like that and when you survive it, how does it change you as a person?
Andrew, it changed me 180 degrees. You know, when I look back, admonished because I say I don't think I was a good person. I'd been very successful in a corporate career, but money was my driver. You know, I came from a family where we'd lost everything at a young age, and I was just so determined to succeed. And I just chased money, and I chased money, and I chased money. And in that time in the ocean, let me tell you, 28 hours is a very long time to think about life and what you've done, and especially when you keep thinking it's going to end. And the regrets I had, and I hadn't spent enough time with my kids, and I hadn't spent enough time with my wife, and all I'd done was work to have money in the bank. And I just, from that perspective, it changed my life 180 degrees. I'm never, ever worried about money again. I don't care about money. I gave up my business that I had at the time. I made a pact that I'd never work in an environment that makes me unhappy anymore. And every day I was waking up so unhappy about what I was doing, but just to make the money, you know. And what was so interesting for me, you know, I in that time, you think so much about the people that have been in your life. The most like jarring thoughts for me were, you know, not once in that entire time in the water did I think about how much money I had in the bank. I thought about my relationship with my wife and kids, and I thought about my relationships with my mates. And my memories were all around the great times I had at people's houses. And I had all these conscious thoughts. I never walked around their house and looked at their house, and the memory is not of their house. The memories of the moment with those people, the special memories with my wife, with my kids. And I remember saying, and I got out, and interestingly, in those 7 hours that I was on the boat with the Aussie guys, I asked for a book of paper, and I just wrote. I wrote everything down, which actually ended up becoming the basis of the book that I published alone. And that's what I just wrote about. You know, I'd spent 50 years of my life worrying about the wrong rubbish.
Well, isn't that a bloody incredible story? If you want to hear more about Brett's tale of survival, you can check out his book, which is called Alone, Lost Overboard in the Indian Ocean. Thanks for listening to I've Got News for You. I'll chat to you again tomorrow.